Hey guys, it's Tiny Tom Logan back with another rush kit for you, and today we're going to be taking a look at two very small graphics cards from MSI, but also very different. Now we've got the 1050 Ti 4GB low profile card, and when I mean low profile, I do mean low profile. I mean, easiest way to show you is to put it up like that. You can see it's what we would actually call half height. Great for small film factors. Maybe you want a server with a little bit of extra grunt, you know, for occasional gaming, you never know. It does come with a full height bracket as well. One of the things little hint for you, is when you do change the brackets, you do have to change the screws here. Well, they're actually the same size as a motherboard standoff, and with some cases you get those little tools to help you put the standoffs in, so you can use those to take it out. Saves making a mess. So yeah, a little bit of a hint for you. It's why I always keep one of these in my toolbox. With the 1060 here, it is the 6GB version, although I do believe they are going to do a 3GB version as well, should you want to sniff one out. But they have done other ITX cards in the past, and they've had, like, best way I can explain it is like a chopped down Intel solid aluminium cooler underneath. But this one's got proper fins, and it's actually got a massive 8mm heat pipe that snakes its way through. And it actually does very well in the cooling department. I mean, that when we were testing it with Unity, we did 4K tests and we did 1080p tests, we were getting a maximum of 62 degrees. The fan doesn't spin up. Well, it does spin up, but what I mean by it doesn't spin up is it doesn't get loud at all, which is something I was very impressed with. And even though it is all small and everything, it does give you a little bit of overclocking headroom as well. But we've got a 6-pin power here. Which means you're going to need to make sure that your power supply can cope with it. But where it's a 1060, as long as you've got a 6-pin power or a decent power supply, you shouldn't really need to worry. But they call it the ITX model because if I move this out of the way, it fits perfectly on an ITX motherboard. So it's perfect for an ITX build. You just need to remember that you've got the height to think of. 6-pin power this way up, so also keep in mind that you're going to have a little bit of a loop when it comes out the top of your graphics card. But cooling wise, like I said, 61 degrees. I actually did give it a little bit of a tickle with the overclocks as well. Now out the box it says it's got 1759 boost clock, coming up from a 1544 base clock. So 1544 start out the box, and then it should boost itself to 1759. But what does happen is our GPU boost kind of cuts in, and what I was seeing, it was a maximum boost on its own without changing anything of 1923 megahertz, and then the average was 1872. And just to kind of give you an idea into why this is actually kind of cool, because it's either obviously that small and it's not massive, and yet the MSI Gaming, the full-fledged massive one with the 2 fans, you know, it's much bigger, extra power connector as well. That one was 1974 megahertz maximum boost, and then 1934 as an average. So there's about 50 megahertz between the two. Yeah, it's so much smaller. The fan profiles are actually slightly different on the two cards as well, because this one will not go above, like I said, about that 62 mark. But the MSI, the gaming fully fledged one, actually lets it go to 65 degrees. Does mean it's a little bit, you know, the fans don't really have to spin as much. But it does just go to show you that the card is incredibly capable, even when compared with its bigger brother. Now, I've not been able to do any thermal tests or anything on the 1070 version, but I would imagine it's going to spin up a little bit more because of the extra cores and heat. But it's all there anyway. When we get to the 1050 Ti, this one here, I did see a maximum of 1708 megahertz and an average of 1648. And that is up from a 1290 base and then a 1392 boost. So the GPU boost does do a fairly good job there when you think about it. Going from 1392 all the way up to 1708, so it gives you another 300 megahertz there. And that again was with a 61 degrees maximum, and that was with 53% fan RPM. Now the fans, I never saw them stop, so they're not semi-passive, unlike this one, which is. But most important thing, you'd think to yourself, with 40mm fans, 50mm fans, sorry, that they would end up being noisy. And while they're not silent, they're certainly not intrusive. I have had much bigger cards come through the office that have been louder than this. So they've done an incredibly good job with this. You can see that we've got it's quite chunky aluminium heatsink underneath, but it's all black, it's all kind of understated. And to be honest with you, I know it's half height and people are going to be wondering why, but there are lots of people out there that will rejoice over the fact that they've got a 1050 Ti option for one of these now. And like I said, it's not impeccably loud. If you were going to use this in your front room for watching films and stuff like that, you wouldn't hear it, especially once you've got the telly on anyway. But most importantly, if you're going to have it in your server and wanting to run it at night, it's not going to be loud enough to notice over any sort of case fans either. So they have done a very good job of both of these, and you've obviously got the two options with the 1050 Ti if you do want to run it in a full-size case and you're just trying to save room in other areas. So I think they've done a cracking job. When it does come to performance for the 1060, one thing I can say is we've not done a full batch of tests because MSI gave us a very short window of opportunity with this. But it was just below the MSI fully fledged gaming model, but never another notch below. So when you look in our graphs, go to the, I'll put the link underneath, go to the review, and it was never, it was always right below the MSI without any of the other cards coming in between. So that's a very good kind of like idea for you there. So I think, you know, the performance on this is absolutely spot on when you think about it. It was always in front of a reference edition, and it was actually normally kind of trading places with a Zotac amp exclamation mark. So the fact that it was fending that off, which was a bigger card and all that sort of stuff and geared for overclocking, I think they've done quite well. When we talk about overclocking as well, I could easily get another 100 megahertz on the top, but then you didn't get the full 100 megahertz with the average. So to be honest with you, with this, it is a fit and forget card. So that you fit it, get your drivers on. You can set up a custom fan profile if you want it to be slightly cooler or you want it to be slightly quieter. And then you can just leave it alone and forget about it. With this one, again, surprisingly, it was always quicker than the 1050 Ti reference, despite the size and a small PCB and the small fans, which again, they do deserve mega props for. So that was our quick look, not a full review, of the MSI GTX 1050 half height card and the Aero ITX 1060. But don't forget they do the 1071 too.